Your special person took your photo to a psychic, and a chill ran down their spine when the psychic said, "You are the soulmate they were destined to find, but foolish enough to lose, dear soul." They did not visit that psychic because they had forgotten you. They went because forgetting you had become impossible. For weeks, perhaps even months, your special person had been carrying a question they were too afraid to ask aloud. They tried to bury it beneath distractions. They filled their days with noise, responsibilities, conversations, and people who knew nothing about the emptiness quietly growing inside them. Outwardly, they appeared to be moving forward. They smiled when expected. They acted as though the separation had been necessary. They may even have told others that everything between you had become too complicated, that the timing was wrong, or that both of you were better apart. But when the world became silent, a different truth returned. Your face appeared in their mind. Your voice entered their memories. The smallest things carried them back to you, a familiar song, a particular fragrance, a street you once walked together, or a phrase only you used. They could escape the relationship in public. They could not escape it within themselves. That was why they took your photograph to a psychic. They needed an answer from someone who had no emotional involvement in the story. They wanted confirmation that what they continued feeling was ordinary nostalgia. They hoped the psychic would look at your photograph and say that the connection had served its purpose, that it was temporary, and that they should leave it in the past. They wanted permission to forget you. Instead, the moment your photograph was placed upon the table, the atmosphere changed. The psychic did not speak immediately. She studied your eyes. She moved her fingers slowly across the edge of the photograph as if she could feel the history contained within it. Your special person watched her face, waiting for reassurance. But the psychic's expression became serious. She closed her eyes. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then she opened them and looked directly at your special person. "What happened between you and this person?" she asked. Your special person tried to remain calm. They gave a small, nervous laugh and said that the relationship had ended. They tried to make it sound simple. They described disagreements, distance, misunderstandings, and circumstances that supposedly made the connection impossible. But the psychic shook her head. "That is not what I asked," she said. "I asked what you did to lose them." Those words entered the room like thunder. Your special person felt something tighten inside their chest. They had expected a reading. They had not expected exposure. They had spent so much time arranging the story in a way that protected them from responsibility. They had told themselves that both of you made mistakes. They had focused upon your reactions while ignoring what caused them. They remembered the moments when you became emotional but conveniently forgot the silence, inconsistency, and confusion that pushed you toward that pain. They remembered your final anger but avoided remembering how patiently you had asked for honesty before that anger appeared. The psychic saw beyond the version they repeated to everyone else. She pointed toward your photograph and said, "This person did not leave because they stopped loving you. They left because loving you was beginning to cost them their peace." A chill ran down your special person's spine. They looked at your photograph again. Perhaps it was an old photograph from a happier time. Perhaps you were smiling in it. Maybe they had taken it themselves. For a moment, the room disappeared, and they were carried back to the day that picture was captured. They remembered what happened before it. They remembered what you said afterward. They remembered how naturally you once trusted them. The psychic continued. This was not an ordinary connection. This person entered your life at a time when you were asking for something real, even if you were not emotionally prepared to receive it. They saw parts of you that you kept hidden from everyone else. They understood your silence. They recognized your pain without demanding that you explain every wound. Your special person said nothing. Their hands may have begun trembling. The psychic was describing the very things they missed most about you. You knew when they were pretending to be fine. You heard the sadness beneath their jokes. You noticed when their energy changed. You offered comfort without humiliating them for needing it. You remembered details others ignored. You made them feel seen without making them feel exposed. At first, this frightened them. They had spent years learning how to remain emotionally protected. They knew how to appear confident while hiding uncertainty. They knew how to give people enough affection to maintain closeness without surrendering complete control. Then you arrived. You did not merely enter their life. You entered places within them that had remained closed for years. You looked at them with a kind of recognition they could not explain. That recognition felt like home. But to someone who has survived by remaining guarded, home can feel dangerous. The psychic placed one hand over your photograph. This person was the soulmate you were destined to find, she said. But you were foolish enough to lose them. Your special person stopped breathing for a moment. Those were the words that caused the chill. Not because they had never considered the possibility, but because someone else had finally said what their heart had been whispering. You were not merely someone they dated. You were not simply a beautiful memory. You were not a temporary lesson they could easily replace. You were the person their soul recognized before their wounded mind understood what was happening. And they lost you. Not because destiny failed. Not because the universe separated you without reason. Not because you were incapable of loving each other. They lost you because when the connection demanded honesty, courage, consistency, and emotional responsibility, they became afraid. The psychic looked at them and said, "You believed this person would always remain available because their love was deep. You confused their patience with permission. You thought you could continue delaying the truth, withholding affection, or giving them uncertainty, and they would continue waiting." Your special person lowered their eyes. That was precisely what happened. They had seen how much you cared. They knew you did not leave easily. Every time they became distant, you tried to understand. Every time they gave you mixed signals, you searched for the loving meaning beneath them. When they pulled away, you moved closer. When they became silent, you created explanations for them. When their behavior wounded you, you wondered whether you were asking for too much. They watched you fight for the connection and slowly began believing that your love had no limit. But love may be patient without being endless. A heart can forgive many times and still reach a final moment when remaining becomes an act of self-betrayal. Your special person did not recognize that moment until it had already arrived. Perhaps you stopped arguing. Perhaps you became unusually calm. Maybe you stopped asking where they had been, what they wanted, or why they were changing. They mistook your silence for acceptance. They did not understand that your silence was exhaustion. You had explained your pain in every way you knew. You had spoken gently. You had cried. You had become angry. You had given them space. You had tried to communicate without accusation. Eventually, there were no new words left. When you finally walked away, your special person may have believed that you would return. They waited. They expected your name to appear on their phone. They imagined that after a few days, your love would become stronger than your disappointment. But the days passed. You remained silent. Your absence began doing what your words had been unable to do. It forced them to experience the consequences of losing you. The psychic said, "This person warned you before leaving." Maybe not with threats, but with tears, questions, and repeated attempts to repair what was breaking. You did not take those warnings seriously because you believed there would always be another opportunity. Your special person remembered everything. They remembered the moment you asked whether they still wanted the connection. They remembered telling you that you were overthinking. They remembered watching pain appear upon your face and doing almost nothing to comfort it. They remembered promises they made during moments of panic and forgot once they felt secure again. They remembered the night you said, "I cannot continue feeling alone while I am loving someone." At the time, they may have defended themselves. Now those words sounded different. They understood that you were not trying to control them. You were trying to save the relationship before it became impossible to save. The psychic turned your photograph slightly toward them. "Look at their eyes," she said. "This person loved you with sincerity. They did not need you to be perfect. They needed you to be honest. They would have walked through difficult seasons beside you, but you made them walk through those seasons alone." Your special person could no longer hide from the truth. Perhaps their eyes filled with tears. Maybe they looked away, embarrassed that a stranger had touched the wound they refused to acknowledge. They asked the psychic whether you still thought about them. The question left their mouth before they could stop it. The psychic smiled sadly. "Yes," she answered. "But not in the way you hope." Your special person leaned closer. The psychic explained that you had not forgotten the connection. Some memories still lived within you. There were nights when their name crossed your mind and mornings when you remembered the future you once imagined. But your memories were changing. You were no longer remembering only the beauty. You were also remembering the cost. You remembered how often you doubted yourself. You remembered the anxiety of waiting for clarity. You remembered how your happiness depended upon their mood. You remembered feeling grateful for small pieces of affection that should have been given naturally. You remembered how deeply you loved them, but you were finally learning that deep love does not make an unsafe relationship healthy. That realization terrified your special person. They had secretly believed that your continuing love would preserve a pathway back to you. They imagined that if loneliness ever became unbearable, they could return, apologize, and find the door still open. But your healing had begun closing that door. Not from hatred. From wisdom. The psychic said, they still carry love, but they are learning to choose themselves. Every day that you remain silent, confused, or unchanged, they become less willing to return to the person they had to become in order to survive you. Those words hurt more than an accusation. Your special person had not only lost your presence. They had damaged the version of you that trusted them completely. They remembered how open you once were. You told them your fears. You shared your dreams. You allowed them to see the vulnerable places you protected from the rest of the world. You believed their promises. Now they wondered whether you would ever look at them with that same softness again. The psychic answered the question they had not spoken. No, she said. Even if they return, they will never return as the person you first met. That person no longer exists. Pain changed them. Healing is changing them again. Your special person felt grief rise within them. They had wanted another chance, but they wanted it with the old version of you, the version who trusted easily, forgave quickly, and saw their potential more clearly than their behavior. The psychic made them understand that such a return was impossible. If you ever stood before them again, you would arrive with boundaries. You would ask questions. You would observe actions instead of surrendering to words. You would no longer accept uncertainty simply because the connection felt spiritual. You would love them differently, if you chose to love them at all. Your special person asked, "Is there someone else?" The fear inside that question was unmistakable. They could tolerate the idea of you healing alone. The thought of someone else receiving the love they had mishandled was far more painful. The psychic studied your photograph again. There is new energy approaching this person, she said. Someone capable of offering stability. Someone who will not make them question whether they are wanted. But this person is moving slowly because their heart has learned to be careful. Your special person's stomach tightened. For the first time, they imagined you beside someone new. They imagined another person hearing your laughter. They imagined someone receiving your good morning messages. They imagined you speaking about your dreams to a person who did not make you regret being vulnerable. They imagined another hand holding yours. The picture disturbed them because it revealed everything they had taken for granted. Your loyalty. Your tenderness. Your ability to make ordinary moments feel meaningful. Your willingness to remain through difficulty. They had once treated those qualities as though they were guaranteed. Now another person might recognize them as rare. The psychic said, you believed you would find the same connection elsewhere. You compared this person with temporary attention. You thought their love was too intense, too emotional, or too demanding. But what you called intensity was sincerity. What you called neediness was their desire for mutual effort. What you called pressure was the natural responsibility of being deeply loved. Your special person remembered the people they entertained after losing you. Perhaps there were conversations. Perhaps there was attraction. Maybe someone new briefly made them feel desirable. But those connections remained upon the surface. Other people admired the version of them they presented. You had loved the person beneath it. Others enjoyed their charm. You understood their contradictions. Others accepted easy conversations. You recognized when something was wrong before they spoke. They discovered that attention was easy to find. Recognition was not. The psychic leaned back and said, "You have met attractive people. You may meet many more. But your soul is not searching for beauty alone. It is searching for the feeling of being understood. That is why you continue returning to this photograph." Your special person stared at your face. They could not deny it. There was something in your eyes that no other person had recreated. It was not merely physical attraction. It was familiarity. It was the strange feeling that both of you had known each other before language, before introductions, perhaps even before this lifetime. From the beginning, the connection felt different. Conversations lasted longer than expected. Silence felt comfortable. You noticed similarities that seemed impossible. Maybe both of you had endured parallel experiences. Perhaps you carried complementary wounds. When one of you spoke, the other often understood the unfinished sentence. Your meeting may have appeared accidental, but the connection never felt accidental. That was what made losing it so frightening. Your special person asked whether destiny would bring you back. The psychic's answer surprised them. "Destiny brought you together," she said. "What happens after that depends upon character." Your special person had hoped fate would repair what they damaged. They wanted reassurance that if you were truly soulmates, nothing could permanently separate you. But the psychic refused to give them that comfort. A soulmate connection does not remove free will. Destiny may arrange a meeting. It may create recognition. It may offer an opportunity for extraordinary love. But it cannot force someone to behave with honesty. It cannot make a frightened person courageous. It cannot make an inconsistent person reliable. It cannot protect a sacred bond from choices repeatedly made against it. Sometimes people meet the person they were destined to find and still lose them because they were not prepared to become the person that love required. Your special person asked quietly, "Did I ruin everything?" The psychic did not answer immediately. She said, "You ruined what existed in its original form. You cannot return to the beginning. Too much has happened. But whether everything is permanently lost depends upon what you do with the truth you now possess." Your special person felt a small amount of hope. They wanted instructions. They wanted to know what message to send, what apology to make, or what gesture could reopen your heart. But the psychic warned them not to contact you merely because they were afraid another person might arrive. "Do not return because you feel lonely," she said. "Do not return because their silence has wounded your pride. Do not return because you want relief from guilt. If you approach them with the same unhealed heart that caused the separation, you will only reopen the wound. Your special person understood that missing you was not enough. Regret was not transformation. Tears did not prove readiness. A person can feel devastated by consequences while remaining unwilling to change the behavior that created them. They had spent nights thinking about you. They had possibly typed messages and deleted them. They had opened your social media page and stared without interacting. They may have asked mutual friends about you while pretending to be casually curious. Yet none of these things repaired the harm. The psychic said, they do not need another declaration. They have heard beautiful words from you before. If you return, they will need evidence that you are no longer the person who expected words to replace consistency. This frightened your special person because words had always been easier. They knew how to say that they cared. They knew how to create emotional moments. They knew how to make promises when they feared losing you. What they struggled to do was remain consistent after the crisis passed. They could offer intensity. You needed stability. They could become vulnerable for one evening. You needed honesty every day. They could chase when you withdrew. You needed them to value you while you were present. The psychic explained that if they truly wanted another opportunity, they first had to confront why they sabotaged the original one. Why did your love frighten them? Why did they create distance whenever the connection became deeper? Why did they protect their independence as though commitment were captivity? Why did they expect you to prove your loyalty while avoiding the same standard? Why did they seek outside attention when your love already stood before them? Until those questions were answered honestly, returning to you would be selfish. Your special person became quiet. Perhaps memories from childhood began emerging. They remembered relationships in which love had been inconsistent. They remembered learning not to depend upon anyone. They remembered promises made to them and later broken. Maybe they had decided long ago that the safest position was to leave emotionally before another person could abandon them. Then you arrived and offered the love they claimed to want. But receiving it required them to release the defenses that once protected them. Instead, they tested you. They withdrew to see whether you would chase. They created uncertainty to measure your devotion. They withheld affection whenever they felt vulnerable. They sometimes hurt you before you could gain enough power to hurt them. None of this meant they did not love you. It meant they loved you through unhealed fear. But fear can destroy a relationship as completely as the absence of love. The psychic told them, your wounds explain your behavior. They do not excuse what it did to this person. Your special person nodded. For once, they were not allowed to hide behind their past. You had wounds too. You had fears too. Yet you continued trying to communicate. You did not use your pain as permission to punish them. You offered opportunities for repair. They responded by making you question whether the relationship mattered at all. The psychic returned your photograph. Your special person held it carefully. Their fingers rested against your face. They asked, do they hate me? The psychic answered, no. Hatred would be easier for them. They are trying to release someone they still love because loving you without safety nearly destroyed them. Those words broke something open inside your special